Welcome back to the channel where we continue along in Power BI, and today we're going to take a look at the count function, show you some examples of count versus CountA, and then we'll also take a look at DistinctCount as you can take a look at a data set. Remember, the best way to learn and use DAX is to get inside your data, ask some business questions, and then start to answer those questions with DAX. We're going to use some of the different count functions. Let's go to Power BI. Back in Power BI, and today we're going to talk about some of the different ways you can count using the count function, also the CountA function, the DistinctCount, and CountBlank. And one of the best ways to learn to use DAX is to get inside your data and really understand some of the different fields that you do have. In these examples, we're going to go from our customer field, and we are going to take a look at the data view. And inside the customers field, we've got columns and items such as customer ID. We've got company name, job title, city and state and country, and zip code. And we've also got a region ID, a customer type, and some of these are used as primary keys to connect to our fact tables. So for this example, we are going to create a new measure table. So from the home screen, we're going to enter data, and we're going to create a table called Count Measures. And this will allow us to put all of these count measures into its own table, so then we can use them into measures. So now that we've set up our table that is called Count Measures, we can start to build out some of these measures. So the first thing we want to count is, we want to count the number of unique customers. And every customer has a customer ID. So the first thing we're going to do is create a new measure. And for this one, we are going to use the count function. So count customers, and we're going to use count. And count asks for a column name. So the column name is going to come from the customers table, and we're going to use the customer ID. So this will count the number of unique customer IDs, which is a number in this data set, and that is the count of customers. Now the next measure we're going to create inside the count measures table is, first off, we're going to move the customers, count customers, and we're going to move that to the count measures. And the next thing we're going to do is add up you can do this with a CountA. So to show you that there's really no difference in the number, we're going to go back to the customers table, and we're going to create a new measure, and we're going to use the CountA. So we're going to use CountA customers, and we're going to use CountA. And again, it's asking for a column name. So if we go customers ID, that will count the number of IDs, and we're going to get the same answer. So when we bring this into our report view, we will bring in, and we'll move that CountA customers over to the count measures. So when we go to the home table and from our visual gallery bring in a matrix, we can see, if we add the values from the CountA customers, and then we add in the values from the count customers, we get the same answer, because it is a column total, and we're using the customer ID, and every customer ID has a unique customer number. So you could use count or CountA. When you want to use the CountA is when you have Boolean functions like true, false, or yes, no. So now we're going to use a DistinctCount. So if we're in our customers table and we want to do a count of countries, we could use a DistinctCount for that measure. So we are going to bring in count of countries. And this one, we're going to use a DistinctCount. And the formula is still a column name. So the distinct column will count all of the unique values in the country. So we're going to bring in customers country. And we can close out this measure and see that we have created, we'll bring that country over to the count measures. And if we go back to our matrix, we see that if we add that as a data set, we get the count of country. So 71 different countries using that DistinctCount measure. Now, if we go back to our customers data set in the data view, and we can see that if we go to country ID, we see that we have blanks, and then we have country ID of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that means for a certain percentage of these customers, we did not get a country ID because it's blank. Now, if we unselect all and hit on blank, we can filter that, and we see that we have 90 filtered rows and 10 distinct values plus a 1 filtered value. So 90 filtered rows. So if we want to see the number of rows that have blanks, we can go to the customer table, create a new measure, and we can start to count blanks. So count blanks, customer ID, and that is going to equal a CountBlank function, and CountBlank counts the number of blanks in a column name. So for the column name, we're going to bring in from the customers table, we have the country ID, and then we will close out that function. So when we bring that into our matrix, and we'll format this so we can fit this in, and we will bring in the count blank, and we see we have 90. So that is how many blanks we have in that column. And remember, your syntax is always the name of the measure. Then we bring in the function name, and you can take a look at your data set using all of these different functions for the count. We have count, we have CountA, which will give you the same answer as count unless it's a Boolean function. Then you have DistinctCount, and then you have CountBlank. Now you can also use other things like CountX or CountAX, and we are going to use those in future videos. But make sure to know how to use your count functions. Those are some of the functions that you're going to want to learn early on when you're learning DAX. And again, the best way to do it is to look in your data set and go to your data view and look at what you want to take for your counting functions and actually start to build out those measures. And then we can add all of those measures to our specific count measures table. So inside this count measures table, if we delete that blank column when we built the table, we now have a set of measures, and we have CountA of customers, we have count blanks, we have count, and we have CountA. So that is a look at the count functions inside DAX. As we continue to learn DAX, with the count functions in Power BI.